Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Johnny and Clyde, the Big Book podcast, also known as Cousin and Clyde, the Rocketman Big Book Study. Um, we're just two sober alcoholics, reading and studying and discussing the Big Book together the way that Joe and Charlie did back in the day. So let's start with a moment of silence, uh, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now we're going to have Lindsay come in and read the set aside prayer for us.
Dear God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, my disease, the 12 steps, and especially about you, so I may have an open mind and a new experience with all of these things. Please help me see the truth.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, in 1973, Joe introduced Chunky as an AA speaker at an Al-Anon convention. Joe and Charlie soon discovered that they both shared a love for the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So they started traveling between their homes and discussing and studying the book together. And it became a regular event. Cousin Jonathan and Clyde met in the Zoo Crew in 2022, and we also discovered that we loved reading and studying the Big Book together. So we were asked to do this podcast, and here we are with you guys today, studying and reading the book all together. So we meet here every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time until 3:30 in this room. Please have your Big Book available with you so that you can read along and take notes and even underline and highlight as we all study together. This podcast is recorded and then it's released every Wednesday. If you hear it on Wednesday, you can go to our website at thezuku.org or just go onto our podcast page on YouTube. So the purpose of this Big Book study is to help us when we're meeting with a sponsee or what they call a prospect or what we call a sponsee these days, or just talking about sobriety in general. See, we want each other to be armed with the facts about ourselves in the AA program, because freedom from drinking comes through taking the 12 steps and working with others. Now, this is what the 12 steps are. You'll find this on page 15 in the 12 and 12. AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in nature, which, if practiced as a way of life, can expel the obsession to drink and enable a sufferer to become happily and usefully whole. How soon do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? We suggest that you purchase a copy of the Big Book for future use if you don't have one. You might want to underline, highlight, and even take notes as we all study together. Please order your AA literature directly from AA so that the money goes to Alcoholics Anonymous and to ensure that you get a good copy. So here in the original Zuku, we are not advocating that you rush through the steps, but we suggest that you have a sense of urgency in taking the 12 steps and having them become a way of life sooner than later. Act as if this was a matter of life and death, because it actually is a matter of life and death. Once again, how soon do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? You can go to our website at thezuku.org and order a copy of the Big Book as well as read it online. Now, the Big Book is our basic text and it contains a full recipe for recovery. It's impossible to find a loophole in the Big Book that excludes you from being a member of AA. All right, so we're going to get started and pick up where we left off at. We are in the chapter, Working with Others. We're on page 94. And we're going to have Clyde come in and bring us up to speed. Now we're going to start reading and studying this book together.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Cousin. I'm an alcoholic. My name's Clyde. Glad to be here with you, studying the book together today. And like Cousin said, we're in chapter 7, which is entirely devoted to step 12, working with others. It's from page 89 to 103. It's 14 pages long. It's a set of instructions for how we practice the 12th step, how we work with others. And, I just want to reiterate this set-aside prayer, how powerful and effective that is to just set aside everything that we think we know about 12-step work. Wait, let's just say, hey, you know what? act as if you don't know what the 12th step is. You've never seen a big book. You don't know anything about it. We want to get rid of preconceived ideas and follow the instructions. So that's what this book is. It's instructions for how we live our lives as recovered alcoholics. It's a list of do's and don'ts. So Bill's telling us, giving us instructions and telling us what to do and what not to do in the process. And so last week, we're in the middle of page 94, okay? And what we ended with last week was the first half of this first complete paragraph. And so the instruction was to, we're discussing with a new person, a sponsee, we're explain the program of action. That's the 12 steps, explaining, how you made a self-appraisal. That's, fourth step. How did you straighten out your past? Your eighth and ninth step. And most importantly is to explain to your sponsee the reason you're here being helpful to them. It's because this is the 12th step. This is a vital part of my recovery. So you want to thank them for giving you an opportunity to carry the message and practice your 12th step, because your life depends on it. Your recovery depends on this. And so he tells us, we also want to point out to our sponsee that we hope that once you escape your difficulties as the result of following these instructions and taking these steps I'm going to guide you through right out of the book, that once you get well and have escaped your difficulties, that you will carry the message to the next person and help them get well. So that's how this program works. We get well, God trains us, we build our relationship with a higher power, and we do take all the action that's suggested. And then once we get well, we carry the message to new people. So on that subject, we're going to start in the middle of the paragraph on page 94. And here's some more instructions from Bill. He says, make it clear, this is when you're talking to your sponsee, that he is not under pressure, that he needn't see you again if he doesn't want to. So this isn't some high pressure sales gig that we're engaged in here, trying to push things on people. We can't make them willing, and we're not supposed to even try. If they're willing, it'll manifest itself. It says, you should not be offended if he wants to call it off, for he has helped you more than you have helped him. So he's helped me because I'm still sober, whether he wants the program or not. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I am in alignment with God's will. I am taking the action that God wants me to, and that's to make myself available to help somebody. And if I've done that, I've done my job, and I'm going to stay sober and I'm going to be helped. That's what God's telling us here, and that's what Bill's telling us. So he carries on here. He says, if your talk has been sane, quiet, and full of human understanding, this is relationship stuff, you have perhaps made a friend. So you could be developing a relationship with someone, only God knows, but this could be, a friend that you end up making here. And here, this is really important. It says, maybe you've disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. If this is agitating to the person, they may have a pretty serious problem. It says this is all to the good. The more hopeless he feels, the better. It's called that gift of desperation. And they talk about it over and over earlier in the book, about how seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. He will be more likely to follow your suggestions. So the more desperate, the better. So who wants to come in and share about this, where, this introductory stuff where you're dealing with a sponsee and you just let them know, there's no pressure here. And Alyssa's going to come in and share with us. Hi, Alyssa, come on in.
Hi, Clyde. Hi, everybody. My name is Alyssa. I'm a recovered alcoholic. So God's redirected my learning of this book or acknowledgement. And so I see a direction. So then I look for a warning and a promise. And there's a promise within here too. So, and that's that if my talk has been sane, quiet, and full of human understanding, I have perhaps made a friend. And then here's an even bigger promise that I didn't think was a promise until I really understood. Well, and I can't even say today I really understand because God will reveal more, and then I think like I don't. But maybe you have disturbed him enough about the question of alcoholism, right? That gift of desperation. That is something like I am so thankful for the gift of desperation that I had to lay aside all prejudice, you know, to experience the program and assess the results for myself. I didn't get that. Like it took somebody else sharing their life story with me, right? They made a friend, then it gave me that promise. It instilled that in me. Because the direction's in there too. But the warning, you should not be offended if he wants to call it off. And the other part of the promise, for he has helped you more than you have helped him. There's several promises right here within this direction. Make it clear, so here's the direction, that he is under no pressure, that he needn't see you again if he doesn't want to. So if I do that, the promise is that I shouldn't be offended because he's helped me. And that's true for me today. That promise comes true every time. You know, when I get the opportunity to host a workshop, I'm so thankful when people come in because you're allowing me to reinforce the process here. This is me, the problem, right in between here, and she needs the reinforcement. So every time I get the opportunity to open my book, bring my higher power, meet with somebody and their higher power, I am having it reinstilled in me. And that is the biggest promise that I could receive. So yeah, that's pretty cool. The direction, the warning, and a couple of promises just in those few short sentences. You know, why do I do this work? Why do I do this work? Because it's full of promise. The reward is the promises that I receive. Friends, peace of mind, sanity. I'll just stop at sanity. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Alyssa. Excellent. We love to hear about this stuff, the way you break it down. Come on in, cousin.
It was done. Last few months that you had, it's got like it's got chapter 3 with
Cousin, you're breaking up. We can't hear you. I'm gonna turn your video off.
I would say
We can't hear you. You're crackling. Should I stop your video? Let's try that. Okay, go ahead and try now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's
Can you hear
better.
me now? Okay, I was saying the last thing that you read, when you
No,
said that
no, we lost you, cousin. You're cousin, we can't hear you.
Okay, let me take these things out.
Yeah, so while he's doing that, I just want to share how grateful I am to have, cousin Jonathan has a gift for really breaking this book down and keeping it simple, just distilling it down to its basic, simple elements. And we get to benefit from that. And also Alyssa is so good now at finding these directions and warnings and promises. She's really got a knack for it. God has blessed her with that skill. And thank you for sharing that with us, Alyssa. So we're in good company here with some good facilitators. Thank you. So cousin, you let us know when you're ready.
I'm ready. You should be able to hear me now.
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. And I was talking about the last few statements that you said, that you have perhaps made a friend. Maybe you have disturbed him about the question of alcoholism. This is all to the good. What is the question about alcoholism? I guess that's when we have those conversations and we're explaining to them what we've learned about alcoholism. And what it made me think of was on page 31 in our big book, when it says, despite all that we can say, many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe that they're in that class. Maybe you disturbed them about alcoholism. By every form of self-perception and experimentation, they're going to try and prove themselves the exception to the rule. Ain't that something? You know? And we're going to run across that. We're going to run across that, you know? So.
That's great, Cousin. Great observation. So again, if they're getting agitated about this subject and they don't want to be labeled an alcoholic, just like Cousin said, they want to self-deceive and experiment and try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule. Good luck with that. And so when they realize how hopeless they are, the better their chance of recovery. It's called the gift of desperation. So, okay, we're going to do some cross-referencing on this next paragraph here. And I want you to think about the beginning, you know, chapter 5, how it works is where steps 3 and 4 are covered in. Bill starts with an outline of the program. And then the directions for steps 3 and 4 are in that chapter 5, how it works. So think about that. Rarely have we seen a person fail introductory, you know, page 59, page 58, 59, as you listen to this. Your candidate may give reasons why he need not follow all of the program. So does that sound familiar? Remember, if you've decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, he may not be. So it says he may rebel. Sounds kind of like balk. At some of these we balked. He may rebel at the thought of a drastic house cleaning which requires discussion with other people. So this guy might be suffering from half measures, balking, not willing to go to any length. So that's what we're dealing with here. You know, he's not willing to do his 4th step and 5th step. And so here's the Bill's instruction. These, remember, we're learning the do's and don'ts. Here's a don't. Do not contradict such views. Don't tell him he's wrong or she. Don't tell the person they're wrong. Instead, here's the do. Tell him you once felt as he does, but you doubt whether you would have made much progress had you not taken action. And what action is that? That's steps 1 through 9, of course. And so it says, on your first visit, tell him about the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. So the action is the steps. It says you wouldn't have made much progress had you not taken action, taken the steps. On your first visit, tell him about the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the group and the fellowship. So we're talking recovery and fellowship unity here. And if he shows interest, lend him your copy of this book. So we don't tell him he's wrong. We just let him know, hey, come to meetings, tell him about our fellowship, our group. Let him know, you know, we come and share experience, strength, and hope there. We join in brotherly and harmonious action. It's a great forum to exchange ideas, what works, what doesn't work. We celebrate with recovery, and you know, the group is amazing and it's a wonderful support system. But the steps, we want to be sure they understand that we would not have made such progress had we not taken action, taken the steps. That's the key. That's where the recovery's at. Come on in, Alyssa.
Thank you, Clyde. That's the promise, that we wouldn't have made the progress if we wouldn't have taken action. There's another promise. Boy, we're about to find all these promises. I'm pumped because it may seem like that's not a promise. Absolutely it is, because it doesn't happen by osmosis. I have to take the action. And I can see now, right? I can see clearly now that I am taking action in the 12th step, right? Carrying this message to another alcoholic, that I wouldn't be where I am today without that action. And That is a promise. And that's what this book is, because for me, the promises are the hope that the hard work of this way of life, because it's not easy looking at the worst parts of ourselves, or like it gets easier admitting it. Actually, today it's a lot easier for me to admit when the character, when self-will comes out, like, I'm not a fan of it. So the humility has been strengthened, but the hope that if I take the action, like I will be able to see these things, and the peace of mind that brings. Simple, not easy. It's hard work, right? But today I never thought walking into a room full of, in our case, there's over 100 people in our meetings, in our main room, and being completely honest and vulnerable, but that's the action I needed to take, right? My mess turned into the message by the action. So that's a huge promise. And Clyde broke down the action's taking the steps.
Mommy.
And the fact that, we can give the literature away, here, take this, tell me where you relate, go to the doctor's opinion, read more about alcoholism, and there's a solution. Bill's story. I started at the doctor's opinion, but yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. So this is just an opportunity for us to not be, too pushy with someone that we're working with. If they are wanting to back off and take it easy, then just tell them, look, I felt that way too when I was new. I understand. But I've taken the steps and joined the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, and those two things have had some pretty darn good results for me. So not telling him what he needs to do, I'm just telling him my experience. So that's what we do. So we can continue at the top of page 95, and we're getting some more do's and don'ts here. Bill's telling us exactly how to work. That's the beauty of this book. We don't have to figure it out or experiment, the instructions are right here, and here they are. It says, unless your friend wants to talk further about himself, do not wear out your welcome. So we don't stay there and just keep, talking about recovery and how awesome we don't want to wear out our welcome. We've spent enough time, had enough discussion. Give him a chance to think it over. So let him absorb it. Let him think about it. Let him process it. We plant the seed. We did what we were supposed to do, and then we back off and just let it rest. It says, if you do stay, let him steer the conversation in any direction he likes. So let him have the floor, him or her. Let the other person, take the conversation wherever they want to go. If they want to stick around and continue to chat. It says, sometimes a new man is anxious to proceed at once, and you may be tempted to let him do so. I know I am. When somebody's ready to do the steps, nobody's more pumped and excited than I am. But we have to be careful here. Here's a warning. It says this is sometimes a mistake. It says if he has trouble later, he's likely to say you rushed him. So I got to be careful here. I'm reading this and I'm learning that maybe I should temper my enthusiasm a little bit, because I don't want to make somebody feel rushed if he does fail. Okay. So it says you will be most successful with alcoholics if you do not, here's another don't, exhibit any passion for crusade or reform. So I don't want to be over the top, too pushy about my belief and how important it is to do this immediately, and crusade and reform, these are strong, passionate feelings that I have that I might be imposing on somebody that Bill's telling me, don't go over the top with it. It says, continued directions here. Here's another don't. Never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop. Simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. Wow, that's good. The kit of spiritual tools. You know, I gotta say, what's coming to my mind, the kit of spiritual tools is this book and these instructions. These are the tools. The 12 steps are the tools. And so it says, show him how they worked with you. And yes, man, I could talk. This is where I need to be careful, because I could go on for hours about how they've worked for me. It blows my mind. I just can't tell you how grateful I am. And it says, offer him friendship and fellowship. So we want to try to connect on a human level. You know, it's not just strictly business. You know, we're not just reading the book and taking the steps, and you know, we want to bond a little bit too, have a little bit of friendship and fellowship with the person. Tell him that if he wants to get well, you will do anything to help. So just make it clear, hey, I am here at your service. This is God's will for me to support you in your effort to recover. I know how to do it because it's all in this book. These steps are spelled out. The program of recovery is very clearly spelled out. I can take you through the instructions and you can recover too. You can get well. So anybody want to share on any of that? An important one is to not talk down to anyone from some moral or spiritual hilltop. We don't want to be condescending. That is not God's will for me. That is a character defect. It's a spiritual pride. Me kidding myself. That's not good. Come on in and share with us, Alyssa.
Thank you, Clyde. Alyssa, recovered alcoholic. And so I've never give anybody my copy of a big book, but I always have spare copies. I still have first editions too that I'm giving away because the first 164 pages haven't changed. The only thing in the first edition is that Dr. Bob didn't sign the Dr. Bob's. So anyway, but give him a copy of. Yeah, so I guess I don't follow the thoroughly because we're given my mine. But so I was listening and I was hearing the direction as you were giving it, right? So here's how I interpreted this paragraph. The direction: if you do stay, let him steer the conversation in any direction he likes. And for me, the warning is sometimes the new man is so anxious to proceed at once, and you may be tempted to do so. This is sometimes a mistake. If he has trouble later, he is likely to say you rushed him. And then the promise: you will be more successful with alcoholics if you do not exhibit any passion for crusade or reform. And then warning: never talk down to an alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop. Direction: simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection. Show him how they worked for you. Offer him friendship and fellowship. Tell him that if he wants to get well, you will do anything to help. Wow, that's a promise. I didn't think, for me, like, that's a promise for the person I'm working with, is that I'm here and I'll do anything to help when it's dealing with the program of action, right? So I had that because I'm doing this as we're studying this, right? If I see a promise, I'm pulling it into our thing. But as I was reading it just now in front of you guys, that's a promise. Like, the program of action is that, you know, I'm going to be in a position of willingness to help whoever God places in front of me. That's pretty cool. So thanks for letting me share on that part of the reading.
Thank you, Alyssa. We appreciate you. Come on in, Mama Bear. Loretta.
Thank you all. I'm still an alcoholic. Yeah, just by being on the zoo crew, watching and observing peoples when they come in, they're very enthusiastic, you know. But now because I've seen them fall back again, that is a big red flag for me. Is when they're anxious to proceed, because I meditate, I chew on things, and but anyway, on the bottom of that paragraph it says, "Tell him if he wants to get well, you will do anything to help." That was the first thing that really stood out to me, is that, you know, I like to think that I'm a pretty good listener, so I can listen, but when someone's anxious to proceed, they want to get too quick in it. That's kind of like, take it easy, because we're going to spend the rest of our lives being alcoholics. It's a disease, just like cancer. The only difference is that, a lot of times you don't get cured by cancer, but we can get cured by alcoholism, but, by following these simple yet sometimes complicated directions. Thank you very much for letting me share, and peace out.
Thank you, Loretta. Okay. Let's go ahead and continue then with the instructions here. So next paragraph, we're in the middle of page 95. Bill tells us if he's not interested in your solution, if he expects you to act only as a banker for his financial difficulties or a nurse for his sprees, you may have to drop him until he changes his mind. This he may do after he gets hurt some more. So if he's not interested in recovering, he just wants, some assistance from you to enable him to keep doing what he's doing, drop him. He's out. Wait till he's a little more desperate and hopeless. And it says he may do that after he gets hurt some more. So let him go out there and keep doing research. And when he comes back, say, I'm joking, but how'd that work for you? How's that working out for you? That's a inside joke. So, okay. So next, he says, if he is sincerely interested, now we're talking. So this guy, now we're talking about somebody who really does want to recover. They are sick and tired of being sick and tired. If he's sincerely interested and wants to see you again, ask him to read this book in the interval. So this is just a great resource, this book. We love the book. That's why we're here studying it together. And because this is how we recover from alcoholism. This is our design for living that works, following the directions in this book. So we ask him, get him a copy of the big book and have him read it. And I, a lot of times, meet with new sponsees. And back in the day before Zoom, you used to meet with people in person. You can do it online now in Zoom rooms. In fact, I do read the big book together. So we sit down for like an hour a week. And just this morning, I did this with a sponsee, and we read the big book together. It's a great way to learn the steps and learn the principles even better, and help somebody else in the process. So it says, after doing that, so ask him to read the book, he must decide for himself whether he wants to go on. He should not be pushed or prodded by you, his wife, or his friends. Again, this is consistent with what we've been learning up above. He's been telling us about this. Matter of fact, we've been reading this from the beginning. Make it clear that he's not under pressure. Middle of page 94. This keeps showing up again and again. He should not be pushed or prodded by you, his wife, or his friends. That's the theme. It just hit me. We keep reading that over and over. How many times have we seen this reiterated by Bill, just in this, from the middle of page 94 to toward the bottom of 95. It keeps showing up. So we're not pushing. It says, if he's to find God, the desire must come from within. He's the one, or she, they are the one that needs to have the sincere desire. We can't force it on them. We can't tell them they have to do that. Loretta, come on in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, with 30-year career of drinking, the court ordered me to go to AA. It was all fine and dandy. I did my part, and but I couldn't I couldn't call myself names. I don't like calling anybody names, let alone myself. Calling myself an alcoholic to me was taboo, and but now after coming into the program last year, then I realized, and it's by God. It was God. It's not, you can try to convince me till you turn blue, but I stand firm in what I believe, right or wrong or indifferent. So it was only God that was able to take me into this road of happy journey of sobriety. And it was only God that was able to bring me into these meetings to be in association with other alcoholics like me and admitting that I am an alcoholic. But nobody was able to convince me. The courts weren't. My baby sister in California, 26 years, so it couldn't convince me. Nobody could, because I didn't see myself as an alcoholic. I refused that. Anyway, thank you for letting me share. I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents on that part. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Loretta. Hey, Alyssa.
Hey, Clyde. Alyssa, recovered alcoholic. Anybody else get this excited about the book? No, okay. So for me, reading this, if he is sincerely interested and wants to see me again, yes, that's a promise of the 12th step, because I get to carry this message to another alcoholic who's still suffering. The direction is for me to ask them to read the book after I'm approached by them, right? Here's the warning. He must decide for himself whether he wants to go on, right? I can't, I quit playing God back when I took the 3rd step, right? I know that that doesn't work. And he should not be pushed or prodded by you, his wife, or his friends. That's the warning. And for me, this is a promise, the way that I read it today. If he is to find God, the desire must come from within. You know, that gift of desperation, like, I know it came when it was supposed to come. But for me, it's a gift, because I know if that gift of desperation didn't come when it came, I would still be out there losing everything. So like for me, that's a huge promise. That is the gift of desperation, that I'm powerless over alcohol, my life is unmanageable. That's a huge promise for me today. So that's how I interpret that reading. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Alyssa. What do you think, cousin?
Hey, yeah, this is great stuff here. And yes, Montana says that if he is sincerely, oh, I love that word. I'm so glad that I found that word in the book, and I'm willing to be that way, And so if he's sincerely interested and wants to see you again, yeah, it tells us what to do. But when it goes down and says that he should not be pushed or prodded by you, his wife, or his friends. And then it gets right to the purpose, if he is to what? Find God. That's what this thing is about. Helping him to get in touch with a power greater than himself. And what it actually made me think about was us actually, the Zuku as a whole. And from the outside looking in, we have such an attractive community that you really don't have to, either you want this or you don't, because there's so many of us and there's so many personalities and attributes and characteristics for you to choose from, that you're going to have to see something that you want, so that's, so it's also important that the person be placed into the right atmosphere that fits them, that makes them, become sincere and want to recover. And I believe that we as the Zoo Crew as a whole have that, so we're ahead of the game, man, and that's thanks be to God. It's nothing that we do, but it's that God, that ultimate authority that's among us. That's just, yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. Can you see that?
Yes, cousin, we can see that. So our role here at the Zoo Crew as a fellowship, as a community, is to make recovery look attractive so that people join us in fellowship and they're like, wow, you know what? I really like what I see and what I'm feeling. I can sense God's presence here, his love and support. And I want this. I want this. And that's how the desire comes from within. Just join us for a while, and God will draw. God does the work. He's the one that makes the person have the desire to do it. We're doing our part by doing what we do here, offering all these workshops and all the literature and the meetings and the scripts, and that's how we make it look appealing, and that's why a lot of people join us and decide they want what we have. Come on in, Loretta.
Yes. What finally brought me into and you call it the gift of desperation, was a few months before I was able to put down that last drink. I was realizing how much of a slave I was to alcohol. I wanted to quit. I tried different ways, but it was the fact that I felt like a slave, and I was. I was a slave to this demon called alcohol, and it took a few deaths and desperation, and I put down that last drink, and I was in pink cloud for a few months, and then reality hit, and that's how I discovered the Zoo Crew a couple of years ago. And but it was the gift of separation, the realization that I was a slave. And anyway, I didn't want to be a slave anymore. Thank you very much for letting me share.
Thank you, Loretta. Okay, Alyssa, what do you think of this?
Thank you, Clyde. So as I was listening and to the shares, so when we drew near to it, it disclosed itself to us. So as the way that God has me looking at, my higher power has me looking at this text. And so the manifestation of this promise that I've just identified, it starts way back. It shows up in step 2, right? Because it tells me that in this reading, it says if, let me go back to that reading. It says, if he is to find God, the desire must come from within, right? So if I think about step 2, it says I needed to ask myself, but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I willing to believe? And as a result of that, there's a promise, right? If we drew near to it, it disclosed itself to us. So that's where my mind is cross-referencing this. If we are to find God, the desire must come from within. Manifestations. Meaning that I have to do the work thoroughly up until this point. It's important that I follow the directions in order to receive the gifts, the promises that I'm identifying, right? That my higher power is showing me in this text. And so not only is he revealing to me how these promises are manifested, where they are manifested in the certain steps, but to me, it reiterates the importance of will I thoroughly follow the directions as they're outlined in this book, right? It says that earlier on. So again, more promises of this hard work. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Alyssa. Yeah, and I also want to point out about reading this book. A lot of people, and I've heard this over and over, like to read the stories in the back of the book, even before they read, the doctor's opinion and through the first 164 pages, because they're really impactful, and people can relate and identify with the stories. They're like, yeah, me too. And it's such a good diverse cross representation of people. There's old and young and male and female and gay and black and Native American, and I mean, you name it. People in the lower socioeconomic status, rich people, doctors. I mean, it covers it all. And they all it relate. We have the same. Alcoholism affects us all the same. All our external circumstances are different, but internally, what's going on with us in our mind and body and soul is the same. And so that's another thing that I like to encourage people I work with to read the stories in the back of the book too, in addition to the first 164 pages. So let's go ahead then and continue. So the last paragraph on page 95, he says, if he thinks he can do the job in some other way, what job? Find God, remember? If he is to find God, the desire must come from within. So if he thinks he can do the job of finding God in some other way, or prefers some other spiritual approach, encourage him to follow his own conscience. It's like, okay, if you got a different system and you're getting some your sixth sense, your intuition is telling you there's a different way that you can use to have a spiritual experience and get well, go ahead and try it. That's fine. We're not pushing anything on anybody. It says we have no monopoly on God. So Bill admits this isn't the only way to find God and have a spiritual experience. It is a way that works. And boy, it works really well, doesn't it? But there are other ways. I know of people that have gotten sober without using the big book in AA. They go to church, they pray, they meditate, they have therapy, whatever they do. So some people, they don't need to take the 12 steps and follow the big book like we do. And we do because it's very effective and powerful, but we're not the only way to do it. Okay. We don't have a monopoly on God. We merely have an approach that worked with us. So we make that clear. We're not claiming this is the only way. That would be a direct violation of our principles, our spiritual principles, to claim, to be that high and mighty that this is the only thing that works. That's not true. We would never make that claim. So we just let them know, this works really well. Try it out if you want. If you got some other system, go for it. That's what we do. But here's some instruction. Point out that we alcoholics have much in common and that you would like, in any case, to be friendly. Let it go at that. So you let them know, hey, let's be friends. If you're going to try some other technique to get sober and recover, wishing you all the best, and let's be friendly and let it go. Done. So, Alyssa, hi, come on in.
Hi, I'm like a kid in a candy store today. Okay, my name's Alyssa. I'm a recovered alcoholic. The Packers are in the Super Bowl of promises. Okay, so it works. It really does. Page 88, line 8. Doesn't it say, here's the promise? Hold on. We merely have an approach that worked for us. That's the promise. Clyde said the direction and the warning. the promise is that what we're giving away is what has worked for us. Like I'm giving you something that has returned me to sanity and has allowed me to live life on life's terms, happy, joyous, and free, trudge through life when life continues to happen, because it does, it absolutely does. But I have a solution. I have a way out. It tells me that. There's a cross-reference to page 88, line 8. It works, it really does. And another promise. So thanks for breaking down the direction, the warning, and clearly reading the promise that this is what has worked for me, and this is why I'm out endeavoring to give it away to somebody else, because, but I can't force it on anybody. I can only like show up and say, hey, this is what's worked for me, and yeah, I was a low bottom drunk. I mean, I could say today that my experiences brought me, in this room on my knees, but these directions have given me a new life. So I'm forever grateful so thank you, Clyde, for breaking this down.
And don't thank me, Alyssa. You could thank Bill and the original people who got sober. So when Bill started writing the book in the summer in mid 1938, there were about 40 people sober. And by the time they published the book in April of 1939, there were about 100 sober alcoholics. And this is the instructions that they were using at the time, and it still works today just as well as it did when it was written. It's like amazing how effective this is, and it's standing the test of time. It's remarkable. So the next page, where we pick up, Bill's going to reiterate some key points that he's already given us, do's and don'ts and instructions. He's going to give us some more. You're going to hear some repeating themes and instructions here. So at the top of page 96, he tells us, do not be discouraged if your prospect, sponsee in other words, does not respond at once. So we just show up and do what we're supposed to do. We're carrying the message. We're offering our service. We're offering service from a spirit of love to help someone out. That's what we're doing. And if they don't respond, that's okay. Don't be discouraged. What do? Direction here, instruction. Search out another alcoholic. So go find somebody else and try again. Okay, I can do that. It says you're sure to find someone desperate enough. Remember that? Hopeless, desperate, gift of desperation, to accept with eagerness what you offer. You'll find somebody that is really getting hammered, and then they are desperate and they eagerly are going to be asking, please help me. Come on in, Alyssa.
Thank you, Clyde. So Clyde started out with Alyssa, recovered alcoholic. Clyde started out with a warning and then the direction. So the warning, do not be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. That was the warning. The direction, search out another alcoholic and try again. The promise, you are sure to find someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you have to offer. So if I heed the warning, follow the direction, the promise of this 12th step will come true, and I will have God will give me a prospect to work with. Like right there, black and white, simple. Thanks, Clyde.
Wow, good catch. Do you guys see what I'm talking about? That's what I'm talking about. Alyssa can really spot this stuff. God's blessed you with a gift here, Alyssa. Thank you for pointing that out. Perfectly. So let's continue. It says, we find it a waste of time. Remember, we don't waste our time anymore. We don't have resentment squandering the hours that could have been worthwhile. We don't waste our time to keep chasing a person who cannot or will not work with you. Someone who's not willing, we are done with them. We don't waste our time with them. If you leave such a person alone, he may soon become convinced that he cannot recover by himself. Now the person's continuing with their step one experience and they're realizing that, uh-oh, I got a problem. I don't think I'm going to be able to take care of it either. I got a lot of bad stuff going on. I'm going to need help. So it says to spend too much time on any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and be happy. Let's not waste our time with people who aren't willing and eager. We want somebody that is convinced they need help and they show up asking for help. And guess what? Who can help them better than we can? Nobody, because we are alcoholics ourselves and we have the solution. It's called the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous in the big book. Come on in, Alyssa. What do you think?
Well, I think you just identified a warning, direction, and there was a promise. So I need to leave them alone. The promise is that they may soon become convinced that they cannot recover themselves. You know, because I've already planted the seed, right? Because it told me on the previous page, and here's where, like, reading it, is that he might, about the friendship, offer him friendship and fellowship. That's a promise to my prospect. And then a promise to me is that I might have made a friend. And where was that one? That was on page 94. But it's, you know, I've had this conversation, I planted the seed, and then I'm not going to enable the person, right? Or like, here, walk and, you know, like, and then so it gets the person thinking, like, you know, for me, it's like, well, I had a friend, where'd they go? Like, so for me, that's a promise. You have the warning, a direction, and a promise is that they will come back to take what was so freely given to us that we want to so freely given away, right? We want to trudge this road of happy destiny together, right? Shoulder to shoulder. We want to find people in the fellowship of the Spirit. And so yeah, that's another warning, promise, and direction. We don't want to spend too much time. Oh, we want to leave a person alone, right? We don't chase after them. And by doing that, that may give them that gift of desperation needed that Clyde was talking about. He didn't say it that way, but I think he said ignite their step one or something, initiate step one. But then the warning is to spend too much time on any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and to be happy. So as I read that, I had to quit playing God. It didn't work, right? I wake up, my real purpose is to be of maximum service to God and the people about me. So I'm in a position of readiness in step 12, right? That I carry this message to an alcoholic and to practice these principles in all of my affairs. And so to practice these principles in all of my affairs, by this time, I'm automatically doing this because I know that it has to be on their time. It can't be on mine. I can't convince them. I can only share my experience, strength, and hope with them. So again, this is reinforcing in my brain as we're studying this, the extreme importance of doing this as outlined in order, thoroughly, because God, if I choose to take my will back away from God's hands, and I start playing God, and then I cut myself off from, you know, working with somebody or on the phone with them for 3 hours while I've just missed, you know, 2 calls from people who really wanted to get into the work, and I'm over here coddling somebody else. So a lot is being revealed to me today, and you can see it doesn't take very many sentences as if I bring my higher power. It's simply amazing. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thanks for sharing. Hey, cousin, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I'm Jonathan, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm kind of on the next paragraph. But you know what it says here, and I can only speak from my experience. And yeah, I would know, if someone really wants to work, because if I have to stick to my method, I'm not going to change the way that I was taught to do things for anyone. And that's just, you guys wired me like that. So, if someone tells me that they want to take the program and they want a good introduction and understanding of the steps. Now listen to this. This is what I tell them, and my story don't change. Listen, I'm going to need you for about 4 or 5 hours. That's it. And then we'll take it from there. And you countless, that was enough. They just didn't want that. So that's that. And those that did invest that 4 or 5 hours, taking time that we might help each other, I still see them around. So this tells you I'm not changing my method of doing things. Yeah. I'm gonna need about 4 or 5 hours. Bring your big book, a few sheets of paper, a pen, and an open mind, and we'll go through these steps, and then we'll start to use them and work them from there. Yeah. But most times, a lot of times when I say that, that's the deal breaker right there. So that's that. That's the deal breaker. No, I'm not doing a step a fucking month with you. No, I'm not doing it on your terms. I'm not doing it the way that your old sponsor or your friend said. And this is how it was presented to me. It's the only way I know how to do it. And that's that.
Yeah. Understood. Yeah, well said, cousin. Thank you. Yeah, we don't say, oh yeah, okay, let's try it your way. No, we're going to do it the way it's spelled out in the book, just like cousin said. So, okay, well, we'll continue. And I just want to reiterate. So Alyssa keeps mentioning a promise that will get someone to work with. You might be thinking, well, how could that be a promise? Well, that's because it's vital to my permanent recovery, having sponsees to work with. Without that, Bill said, without that, there's no spirit. I'm not perfecting and enlarging my spiritual life unless I'm engaged in self-sacrifice and helpfulness to others, working with others. It's vital. And my very life as an ex-problem drinker depends upon my constant thought of others and how I may be help meet their needs, carrying the message, working with others. My recovery depends on this. That's why these are promises. That if we follow these directions, we will get people to work with, sponsees. They are vital to us. We have to have them. So that's why it's a promise. Every time we do what it says in here and successfully find someone to work with, that's a promise coming true. That's a gift from God. So here, says one of our fellow, we're in the middle of this first paragraph on page 96, says one of our fellowship failed entirely with his first half dozen prospects. He often says that if he had continued to work on them, he might have deprived many others who have since recovered of their chance. So we're not being of maximum helpfulness to others if we're chasing down the wrong people. God wants us to work with people who are sincerely interested in our technique, our approach, our directions, our process here. Just like cousin said, he's got a program that works, he lays it out, and if they want it and they're willing, they'll come and do it. And if not going to waste time trying to convince them and make them willing and explaining to them. We let them go. What do you think, Loretta?
Absolutely, man. That's wisdom. Don't waste your time with people that you like. They're wishy-washy. They don't. A lot of times in this generation, people don't know. They don't see. They're blind. And you're absolutely right, cuz yeah, stick to the program. That's the only way. And that's that's what I'm learning, to use wisdom. So I'm doing my best just to be observant. I come to the meetings every day, at least once a day, and I participate to the best of my ability, and sharing is part of it. But yeah, I don't like wasting my minute. I mean, I every minute counts, every second counts, everything counts. And anyway, what you guys saying is absolutely beautiful, wonderful, and that's using wisdom. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Loretta. What do you think, cousin? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Ray says it every day to us, man. He says this program is not for people who want it. They're not for people who. It's not for people who need it. It's for people who do it. It's for people who do it, and that's just like money. You know, money is not for people who want it and not for people who need it. It's for people who are willing to get up and work for it. Go get it. You know.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. Absolutely right. Lindsay, what do you think of all this?
Hi, Lindsay, grateful recovering alcoholic. I can really tell pretty much by the initial conversation whether somebody's sincere about or has that gift of desperation. Oftentimes I've heard, well, my schedule's kind of busy until 3.5 weeks from now. Maybe we can arrange to meet at that point. And I'm just kind of like, it's so important not to waste our energy foolishly. You know what I mean? Because I just want to reiterate that time could be spent to somebody that is right there, ready and willing to do that work. And that's what the focus needs to be, because we want people to recover at a speed where they feel like they're recovered. They know that they're recovered and they're recovering. But we don't want people waiting on steps for months and excuses here and this and that and this and that, right? That's not the point. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Lindsay. Elissa, come on in.
Thanks, Clyde. Alyssa, recovered alcoholic. So, because I didn't read ahead, I was staying line by line. He often says that if he had continued to work with them, he might have deprived many others who have since recovered of their chance. And that's what I was sharing before, because if I start to play God again, I'm cutting myself off from the sunlight of the spirit. But, and as I was listening to you guys share, it was like, I used to blame God for all my problems, right? Like, that's so ridiculous. And today it's like when I hear people, well, why God hates me? Why am I no, because God gives us free will, right? And so I today, in a place of sanity, I'm in a sane state of mind, choose to align my will with God's will, because I know that I receive the sunlight of the spirit, that I live a life beyond my dreams, so he wrapped up the paragraph. My point is what I was saying, but we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. That line is reiterated here, because if he had continued to work with them, he might have deprived them. He realized that I was doing that. Oh, I stopped because I was playing God, and that's okay, because we're still human, we're fallible, we're not going to be perfect. But he acknowledged his faults. Like, that's what I see here too. I see humility in this line, is that he had the humility to identify that, hey, I was doing this with at my first half dozen prospects, but now I know that's not how it's supposed to go, because I was depriving others of their chance of recovery by trying to play God. So that's pretty cool that was just revealed to me. Thanks, guys, for letting me share.
Thank you, Alyssa. Cousin?
Yeah, and on this same note. Now listen, us as a group, we take our cue from Dr. Bob on page 263. And the first thing that he says is, it was Dr. Bob's afternoon off, and what? He had me to his office. He didn't come to my office. he had me to his office. That meaning I had to get up and go there because I wanted what he had, and it's still the same today. That's that, But that's where we take our cues from, and it's crazy. All the answers are right in this book when we look, right?
Yes. Thank you, cousin. Hi, Alyssa, come on in.
I need to work on my character defect of apologizing when my higher power reveals stuff. No, but because I'm apologizing. And I shouldn't. I'm very thankful that I'm blessed enough to be to have him reveal these things to me, who have since recovered. All right, so I'm gonna do some cross-referencing, and I'm gonna start at the title page. The story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. Oh, how's my battery low? Where's my charger? Oh, sugars. Well, the next one is in the foreword to the 4th edition. And I'm saying this from memory as I get to my charger so my computer doesn't die. Is that we of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. So what I didn't see the promise, even when I was sharing, like, I'm telling you, this is what God does for me. Like, this is a huge blessing. But that is a promise, who have since recovered, because the main purpose of this book is enabled me to find a power greater than myself, which will solve my problem, right? I've recovered from that seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And it's telling me again, right here. But it's talking about who I'm giving it away to, right? As long as I'm aligned with God's will, I am helping others to achieve, right? I'm a vessel of the message, taking what was once a mess, my experience, right? The strength is the recovery, because I'm recovered, and that hope is entangled in there. Wow, that's a lot. I could keep going, but I'm going to stop. Thanks for
Yeah, thank you, Alyssa. Thanks for pointing that out. So we're going to read on now and continue with the instructions. It says, suppose now you are making your second visit to a man. He has read this volume and says he is prepared to go through with the 12 steps of the program of recovery. So he likes what he sees. He's ready to go through with it. Having had the experience yourself, you can give him much practical advice. Boy, I'll say, and take him right through the instructions just like we're doing. Let him know you are available if he wishes to make a decision and tell his story, but do not insist upon it if he prefers to consult someone else. So make a decision, that's the 3rd step, remember? And then tell his story, I believe that's the 4th and 5th step. So let him know I'm available. I believe that's what he's saying here. What do you guys think when he says, this guy's ready to go through the steps? And just tell him, hey, I'm here for you. You want to do the steps? And I think he's referencing steps 3, 4, and 5 here. But do not insist upon it if he prefers to consult someone else. So I think Bill's telling us, look, you may not be the person to sponsor him. Maybe say he wants to work with someone else. That's one possibility. What do you guys think? Loretta, come on in.
Oh yeah. Again, that it stands out to me. Let him know you are available. That reminds me about being a light on a hill, and they will come to you. You are the beacon, and that's what I'm seeing from these readings is that you present him the good news, and leave it alone, and they'll come to you. I mean, that's what I see here is you just be the light in this dark world and they'll come. You give them the good news, you want to recover, There you go. And that's it. Let God do the rest. That's what I see. And thank you very much for letting me share.
Thanks, Loretta. Come on in, Alyssa. What do you think?
Clyde, I definitely, because it says that he has read this volume, which goes over every step. So I agree with the part what you said about where 4 and 5 comes up. Let him know if you are available if he wishes to make a decision and tell his story, but do not insist. Quit playing God, it didn't work. If he prefers to consult someone else, because Mama Bear just said it. I don't know, like, Clyde and Cuz, like, Cuz and I started back. He came into the zoo 2 months after I did. We've been like OGs. And I don't say that as a standard moral, but these two gentlemen are pillars in my sobriety. I know that if I need them, I call them, they will keep me in the solution. They will take me to the solution. You know, and they also are instrumental parts in me growing and understanding and effectiveness, right? But I don't know, as much as I hope that, you know, God keeps them in my life for as long as I'm alive, I have no control over that. I have no control over that. But I'm going to be thankful for the time that I have them, right? Just like I'm thankful for the time that I have a sponsee. You know, they may take me for a little bit, give what I have or take what I have to offer, and then find somebody else and move on. And that's okay, because it's on God's time. And that's what keeps coming back to me here, is this is actually a promise, because this person wants to get well. Like, so I've done my part in step 12, right? Like, giving it away to keep it. But someone else wants to get well. So that's a promise, even though it may not seem as clear, like as a promise of intuitively knowing how to handle situations, which is baffling. But, you know, they may not want to continue the trudge shoulder to shoulder with me, but that's okay. They want to continue on this road of happy destiny so that they can be happy, joyous, and free. And I did my part by not playing God. Like, that's a miracle. That's a miracle. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Alyssa. What do you think, Cousin?
Yeah, I totally identify with this when it talks about, you know, someone making a visit, and yeah, the guy is ready. He's reading the book and he's prepared to go through the 12 steps of recovery, right? And then I tell him about my experience that I had with it. And the bottom line is that, you see, I don't have to be somebody's sponsor to take them through the steps. and that's been even my sponsor didn't take me through the steps. My sponsor did not take me through the steps. I was sent back to my sponsor to do my 5, 8, and 9, and then to start moving on. You know, when my sponsor didn't take me through the steps, you know, I had a good introduction and an understanding of the steps by a guy, Derek Carr, right? And John was involved. John A is my sponsor. He's involved, but he allowed Derek to take me through the steps because for some reason, he was just a good fit. He was a good fit for me, you know. And then I went back and did my 5, my 8, and my 9, and kept on from there. So that might be something that could happen here. You know, he's ready to take the steps, but I don't care where you take the steps, but I just want you to get through them. And if I gotta introduce you to somebody who might better suit you or fit you at that time, then that's what I'll do, with no problem and no feeling, no kind of way, except for gratitude and hope for you to get through it and start living, you know.
All right. Well, thanks, Cousin. So I think we're at about running out. We're at, you know, it's 3:24. So maybe be a good place to break where we're at and pick up next week. You want to go ahead and wrap things up here, Cousin?
Okay, I can get the piece up there. Sure. Let's mark off where we left off at.
He may be broken homeless is where we're going to pick up next week.
Okay, so, all right, great. If you could pull it up quicker than me, Clyde, go ahead and get it.
Yeah, I'll be happy to. You want me to go ahead and read the closing? Okay.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, I'll be happy to read it, cousin. So, thank you everyone for coming to the Cousin Jonathan and Clyde the Rocketman Big Book Study. We meet every Sunday at 2 o'clock to 3:30 p.m. Eastern in this room. The podcast will be available by this Friday. Join us on Telegram for updates. So Big Book page 164 says this, from the Vision for You. So it says, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. So we're going to go ahead and close our podcast meeting, Big Book Study here with the Lord's Prayer. Let's recite that together. You can all unmute yourselves and come on in. And who brought us together for this Big Book Study today?
Our Father,
Our Father,
Who art in heaven, hallowed be
Thy
thy name.
name.
Thy
thy
kingdom
Kingdom
come,
come,
thy
thy
will
will
be
be
done
done,
on earth
earth
on
as
earth
it
as
is
it
in
is in
heaven.
heaven.
Give
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 us
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 this
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 day
day our
day
our
our
daily
daily
bread,
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 and
and forgive
forgive
us
us
our
forgive us
our
our
trespasses,
trespasses, as
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 we
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 forgive
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 those
those
who
who
those who
trespass
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 against
against us.
us.
Lead us
And
not
lead us
into
not
Not into
into
temptation,
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 but
but
deliver us
deliver us
from
deliver us
from
evil.
from
evil.
evil.
For thine is the
For thine is the
Kingdom,
kingdom,
power,
power,
the
and
power,
glory
and the glory,
forever.
forever and ever.
Amen.
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 All
Yay.
right. Thanks, everybody.
Lovely meeting, guys. You have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much.